Mustang. Mustang. Move into the cool world of Mustang.
Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we have a very special build and review of this amazing quarter scale model of the Ford V8 K-Code engine by Franszis. Now, as you can see, this is huge. This is a big, very heavy box. Takes up almost my entire workbench. Now, this kit is distributed in the US by Makerhaus Limited, and if you would like to get one of these for your own, there is a link in the description below, and also a QR code on the screen that you can scan and be taken right to their website. I'd like to thank my friends at Makerhaus Limited for sending this into the channel for review, and I have to tell you, as a Mustang fan myself, I have been really looking forward to sharing this kit with all of you. On top of that, 2024 also marks the 60th anniversary of the Mustang, and this is a great way to celebrate that milestone. Now, before I get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of my current subscribers. Thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate it. And if this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome, and thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy this content, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. And of course, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and as always, feel free to engage with me in the comments and share this video with fellow enthusiasts. I'd also like to remind you to check out my online shop. There you can find a variety of scale model themed merchandise designed by yours truly, a scale model builder. It's a great way to show off your love for the hobby and share your passion for scale models. Now that we've covered that, let's dive right in. So, what is a K-Code Mustang, you might ask? The first generation Mustangs were available with a lot of engine options, each with its own engine code. The most desirable engine at that time was the K-Code engine. In fact, the K-Code Mustangs are considered among the most desirable and collectible classic Mustangs in the world. And the K-Code was only available from 1964 and a half to 1967. The K-Code engine was a 289 cubic inch V8 high-performance engine that delivered 271 horsepower. And this was a significant boost over the standard D-Code engine, which was a 260 cubic inch V8 with only 210 horsepower. Now, this kit looks to be a really nice replica of the K-Code V8 engine. And with this kit's see-through parts, you'll be able to actually see the internals of the V8 engine actually function. These kits are great tools for education, and as you all know, I really enjoy teaching people how and why things work. Now, let's take a look at this huge box. On the front of the box, we have a very nice picture of a completed model. We have the 1965 Mustang here and the logo, and this is also a official licensed product by Ford Motor Company. On the side of the box, more artwork here, same artwork here, and same artwork here. On the back of the box, we have some pictures of classic Mustangs and their engines. We have some information here about the Mustang and how it began in 1964. And this is in two different languages. This is in German, I believe. And then this down here is in English, and that follows throughout the back. Now here is a kind of quick picture of all the parts included in the kit. There are over 200 parts, I believe. So this is going to be a pretty significant build. One of the cool things that this kit comes with is the manual for the kit is also like a book. So I'm really interested in checking this out because I just think that history stuff about the Mustang and all that information is really cool. And from what I understand, the book is also your instruction guide. All right, so let me grab a knife and we'll cut this box open and see what's inside. Okay. First out of the box is this really nice looking book. Really nice looking. It's sealed in plastic, so I'll open that up in a moment. Inside the box, we have bags and bags of parts. Now these parts are on trees, just like a regular model kit would be. And there is a lot of parts in here, and it is heavy. Here, this looks like our intake manifold. Nice clear, kind of almost smoked a little bit color. Here we have the oil pan, and you can see, if I can get this open real quick. All right, now you can see this is the oil pan, and this is my hand, so it's a pretty good size kit. Nice feeling plastic. It's nicely molded. Seems very sturdy. That's awesome. Now, these kits were originally published, from what I could tell, back in 2016, and I think they've gone through a couple revisions. This is the latest revision, and I know that the previous kits were, these oil pans were black, and the colors were a little different. This is now in a nice Ford blue, which is nice. So we'll, when we get into this, we'll try to figure out what the complete differences are, if any, other than color. I don't know. But I'm not going to go through all of the parts in the box individually, because we are going to build this step by step. Because there's no glue, we're not going to do any painting. Naturally go through all the parts as we go. All right, now let's get this book open and take a look at it. Okay, I had to move the box because I just don't have enough room on my bench. So this is the Ford Mustang V8 motor engine book, and it is very well made. All right, and then we get to the assembly instructions. So what we're going to need some side cutters, we're going to need a knife, and we're going to need a screwdriver. This kit does take batteries. It has sound and action. It'll actually turn the engine, and you'll be able to see the spark plugs flash and light up in firing order, and then sounds of an actual K-code engine. All right, and then we go into the actual assembly. So it's actually showing us assembling the parts. All right, well, I'm gonna grab some tools and get the parts set up, and we are gonna get to the build. Okay friends, before we get started, I had to open up the first bag to get the screws out and a couple other parts. Now, they do include a Phillips screwdriver with this kit. However, I'm not going to use this screwdriver. I am going to use my own, only because this is one that I'm comfortable with using. And this one, the handle's pretty small. Even though it will do the job, your hands are going to cramp up trying to use this to build the kit, because you're going to be using a lot of screws. Also, I thought this was really cool. These are all of the springs for the valve train, and they've put it on a zip tie, which is a pretty cool way to ship them. So definitely don't want to lose these either. Now, as for your screws, it appears that all of the screws are the same size, which is nice. So now I would suggest you find yourself a nice container and get all of your screws in this container, and make sure it has a lid, because it'll never fail. You're going to bump this or slide it, and screws are going to go flying all over the place. All right, so let's get started with step one. Okay, for step one, we're going to be assembling the pistons with the connecting rods. I've already cut off the pieces that we'll need for each one. They're all very clearly marked on the sprue. However, when you cut these off of the sprue, off the tree, you want to make sure you're using either a good pair of side nippers or a really sharp knife. And the reason is you're going to have a little bit of a burr left on there, so you're going to want to make sure that you clean it off real quick. And also on the pistons, because when the pistons are inside the cylinder, they're going to be going up and down. You don't want these to catch. So you want to clean them up, and you can do that with your knife, or you can get yourself a sanding stick and do the same thing. And with a sanding stick, you can really easily just clean those up And now they're nice and smooth. All right, so let's go ahead and put one of these together. Okay, so these go together just like this. You take your little rod here, place it in the center hole. Then you want to take your connecting rod, slide it over that. Actually, let's clean that up a little bit because there's a little bit of a burr on that, and that has to move as well. Now these should fit loose in here because they need to be able to move. Take your connecting rod, put it on that. Take the other half of your piston, line up the holes like so, and just squeeze them together. And there you have the first piston. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other 7 pistons, and we'll be right back with the next step. Okay, for step 2, we are going to attach 4 of the pistons and their connecting rods to the crankshaft. Okay, so you want to take one of your pistons and connecting rods, put them on there like that. Then you'll take your end cap, and this is going to be a little fidgety. You put this over here, and they'll snap in place. Now we're going to go ahead and put on the other 4, and then we'll put the screws in after. Now, let's get our screws. We'll just put these in here like so. Just get it started. And our other one. You want to make sure those are tight, but you don't want to over tighten them because these are metal screws going into plastic. That piston wasn't connected all the way. All right, let's get our next 2 screws. This is a little weird handling these because they're just moving all over the place. But be patient and you'll be able to get them in there. All right, and that's the end of that step. Okay, for our next step, we actually get to bring in our crankcase. So what we're going to do in this step is set it so that it's facing you, and we're going to take our last remaining pistons, and we're actually going to slide them into the cylinders like so. And that's the end of that step. Okay, moving on to step 4. This may get a little tricky. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the 4 pistons in our crankshaft and we're going to fit them into the cylinders on this side. All right, and then we're going to take these pistons that we put in step 3, and we are going to attach them to the corresponding locations on the crank. Make sure that this post goes in this hole on this side so it holds it all together. Okay? Now, these piston rods are going to connect onto the same rod as the other one we put on. So we just have to hold it in place with your thumb and squeeze that on there. Now for these, I am going to put the screws in because we've got so many parts now. We don't want them falling apart while we're, whoops. Okay, get that back on the screwdriver there. All right. And again, this is a little fidgety because everything is moving around. Whoops, well, we lost a screw. Fortunately, got a magnetic screwdriver. All right, let's get this other one in here. All right, now I'm going to do the rest and I'll be right back. All right, now we have all of our pistons and our connecting rods in place, and you can see if we turn the crankshaft, you can actually see all the pistons going up and down in the cylinders. That is pretty cool, and that's the end of this step. Okay, I have to apologize. That last step was actually step 5. I just got ahead of us there, but that's okay. So now we're moving on to step 7, and we are going to be building the camshaft. So we are going to need our metal rod that we had from earlier, and this piece, number 7. And basically, for this step, we're just placing this on the cam end like that, and that's the end of that step. Now, we're going to take these parts, and these are the actual cam lobes. These are going to go on this rod, and they go in numbered order. You got to be careful on this part. If you don't get this right, things aren't going to work well. So I'm going to go ahead and take all my parts off and get them placed in order, and then we'll be right back. All right, so I have all my parts cut off the sprue and straightened out in order. It starts in number 8 and goes to number 22. Now, they're marked on the sprue, but they are also marked, if you can see that, they're marked on the piece. Here's part number 22. So what we want to do is take our camshaft with the end here, and we're going to start with part number 8, and it goes on just like this. And as you can see here, it will fit. They're keyed. It will fit right in the spot on that. Now this one here is also keyed, so we'll take our next number. We'll put number 9 on there. Push it into the keyed position. And now we've got those 2 on there. And we'll just follow this along until we have all of our cam lobes placed on the camshaft like so. All right, there we have our camshaft. You want to make sure all of these are pressed in as good as you can. And that's our camshaft, and that's the end of that step. Okay, for step 8, we're simply going to place the camshaft bevel gear on the end of our camshaft that we assembled in the last step. Press it on, and that's the last of that step. Okay, for the next step, we're going to take our camshaft and our engine block with our pistons in it, and we're going to insert the camshaft, this end, the gear's on this end, so you want this end to go in this hole in here, and then it just snaps into place on this end of the engine block. Now, when you put yours in, it should spin very freely. Mine did not. So what I had to do is I had a little bit of a burr right in here, kind of like a lip. I had to sand that down a little bit to give this enough clearance to make sure it would rotate freely. If you don't, if this is too hard to turn, you're just going to burn up the motor trying to turn it, and everything won't work as well. Now, one other thing you have to make sure, because these have to fit in to the space between here and here, you want to make sure all of your cam lobes are pressed together all the way in. If they are, then it should fit with no problems. So we'll put this in here, snap it in, and it turns freely. And that's the end of that step. Okay, for step 10 and 11, we're going to need our engine block assembly again, and we're going to need our counterweight, part number 24, and our lower cam belt sprocket, number 25. So for the counterweight, hold your engine like this. The counterweight is going to go on the end of the crankshaft this way around, not this way, this way. And it should just slide on and key into place. Now, we take our camshaft sprocket and we'll put that on the same way, and it fits right over. It's keyed so you can't put it on wrong. And that's the end of that step. Okay, now we're moving on to steps 12 through 15. And there's a very important part here that I want to go over with you, because if you don't get it right, things aren't going to work later on. So the first part, we are going to install the cam belt sprocket, number 26, to the end of the camshaft and secure it with a screw. Then we're going to take this special alignment tool and we're going to line it up with these sprockets on the top and the bottom. Each sprocket has 3 holes in it. Now what this is going to do is this is going to line up our camshaft and our crankshaft, so eventually everything will work as it should. After that, we're going to put on our timing belt, which is actually a chain in the real engine, but this is a rubber belt in this one. And then it looks like we're going to get to install our motor to the front of the engine. So let me get the parts and we'll get right to it. All right, so we'll bring back our engine block here. We will take our upper cam sprocket. We'll install this. Again, this is keyed, so it only goes in one way, like that. And we're going to install 1 screw on the end of this to hold it in place. Okay, now we're going to take our alignment tool and we're going to line this up with the 3 holes here and the 3 holes on the lower sprocket. So as you can see, they go like this. Let's get that one there. Hold it in place. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now our camshaft and our crankshaft are lined up properly, so we know our timing's going to be good. All right, the next step is to simply put our timing belt chain, or rubber belt, over that part of the gear. Make sure all the teeth line up. And that's that for that step. Okay, for this step, we're going to need our motor and 2 screws. All right, there we go. So it just sits on there like that. And then we'll get our 2 screws set in there. And we'll tighten those up. Again, we're going into plastic with metal screws, so you do not want to over tighten these. Okay, now we've got our alternator, which is actually the electric motor inside that's going to enable everything to spin. We've got our timing on, we've got our crankshaft and our camshaft in, our sprockets are lined up. All right, so that's it for these steps. All right, for this next step, we're going to be installing our front timing cover. Now, remember what I said about this alignment tool. You don't want to move these gears. However, we have to put this cover on, so we have to remove this. So you're just going to want to be careful that you don't turn anything. So let's get this ready. And actually, I am going to undo this so I can get this wire out of the way. There we go. All right, so this is going to be held on with 3 screws. So we're going to take our alignment tool out, making sure not to turn anything. We're going to take our cover, make sure you don't get your wire underneath there. So here is your end of your crank that has to go into here. You can use that to kind of line everything up. All right, and there it is. So we'll take our screws. We'll place 1 screw in here. Do our next one. And then 1 on the bottom. All right, that's all for that. So now we can set this aside. Okay, now we get to move on to another stage and another part of the build. We're going to fit our crankshaft support into the oil pan. So to do that, we take part 30, and this is going to fit on just like that. Then we'll hold it in with 2 screws. And that's it. We can set this aside. Okay, for our next step, we get to put the batteries in the little control unit in the bottom here. So let's just open this door up. And this takes 3 AA batteries. The batteries are not included in the kit. We'll put our door back on, tighten that up, and that's that. Okay, now that we've got our batteries installed in our base, we're going to attach the oil pan from the previous stage. So I will tell you, if you have a larger screwdriver like I'm using, this won't work on this, and I'm going to show you why. So for this case, we're going to use the screwdriver that they sent with the kit. Now if you have just a skinnier screwdriver that you prefer to use, that'll work too, but we're going to use this one for this step. So first you want to make sure your speaker is on this side. Then you want to take your oil pan and make sure the sump is on this side, or with the lower, you see there's 2 high posts and 2 low posts. The sump needs to go on the part with the low post. Just fit them in there like that. And then we're going to attach that with 4 screws. Now this is why you need this little screwdriver, because these screws have to go in through the base and into the oil pan. So to get them in there, they go way down in there, and my larger screwdriver just won't fit down in that hole. So now we'll install the rest of our screws. And you want to make sure these are tight, not over tightened. You are going into plastic again. And that's the end of that step. Okay, things are coming along really well now. So now we're on to the next step, which is step 20. And we are going to attach the engine block to the oil pan. Now to do this, we're going to need 6 screws, and 2 of them are going to go up from the bottom, and the other 4 are going to go down from the top. So we'll just take this and we'll line it up like so and just set it in there like that. You can see here we're lining it up in the back, lining it up in the front. Be sure not to pinch your wire. And we'll get 6 screws. And this time I'm going back to my good screwdriver. Alright, so the screws are, you have to go in through here to get to where those screws go. I hope you can see that. So we'll get this one started in here, like so. Alright, get another one. Put that one in there. Now, I don't like tightening these up all the way until I've got all of them in place. That way I can kind of make sure that everything's lined up before I really crank down on any of these screws. Alright, those are our 4 from the top. Now we'll get our 2 from the bottom. Hope you can see that. Alright, now that those are in there, I'm going to go back around, and now I will tighten them up. Again, don't over tighten them. Okay, and then we'll snug up our bottom ones here. Alright, and that is the end of that step. In this step, we're going to take the crankcase cover and the bevel gears, and we're going to assemble them, and these will be eventually what drives the distributor. These are going to be held in with 1 screw, this beveled gear, and push it up from the bottom into this hole. And then you want to take this gear, which has a flat key spot in it that matches this gear. So they have to line up. We'll put that on there like that. Just like so. And then we'll secure that with one screw. All right, those are in there, turns freely, and that's the end of that step. Okay, so to put the crankcase cover on, you want to make sure that this gear here engages with this gear here on the end of the camshaft, because those two have to drive each other. So we'll put it in like this, make sure that they're lined up and engaged, and they are. We'll push that down, and then we're going to secure this with 6 screws. All right, these screws are going to go in at an angle right through here. There's one. Two. And again, I don't like tightening these up until I've got them all in and I know everything is lined up properly. There's 3. And now that I know all those are in, I can go back and tighten them all up. And that, put that screw back before we lose it, and that is the end of that section. Okay, for step 23 through 24, first we're going to be assembling the cylinder plates to the cylinder heads with 4 screws each. Okay, so you'll want to make sure your head is situated this way with your intakes facing up, and then your plate is going to go on with the, you can see it's flat on this side and it's got your recesses for your valves on that side, so you want to make sure the recesses go inside. And these are going to sit on these 4 posts, and we'll attach them with 4 screws. And just like on the other parts, when you're doing a larger area, I like to crisscross them and just get them started before I tighten everything up to make sure that everything's going to sit down where it should. All right. And there we have our first head. Now I'm going to do the next one and we'll be right back. Okay, now we have our 2 cylinder heads installed, and that's the end of that step. Okay, for the next step, step 24, we're going to actually be installing the valves and the springs inside the head. We are going to start off on the left cylinder head for this step and get it completed. Now, a couple things you want to pay close attention to when you're installing your valves, okay? They're 2 different sizes. These parts right here, and they're clearly marked number 40 and number 39. So the intake valves are number 40 and the exhaust valves are number 39. So just pay close attention when you're snapping these in place and you should be fine. Okay, so we're going to start by installing our first intake valve. So we're going to have the valve stem, 1 spring, and these springs are kind of hard to hold on to, so I like picking them up with my magnetic screwdriver, getting them started, like so. So now we've got a valve stem with a spring, and we're going to stick this in the first hole, then underneath, and remember the 2 sizes of the valves, so this is the larger number 40, we're going to stick it on there, snap it on, and there you have your valves installed. Alright, so now we'll do the first exhaust valve. So we'll take our stem, one of our springs, stick it in this next hole, and then we'll take our smaller valve, place it on the end, and just push it on. And there we have it. You see your exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. Just like that. All right. Now I'll do the rest of these. We'll be right back. Okay, and there we have it. We have all of the valves installed on the first head. Now, for the next step, we're going to go and do the other cylinder head. All right, so there we have both cylinder heads and the valves are complete. And that wasn't too bad. Just again, make sure you get the right size valve in for the intake and the exhaust. Also, these little springs can get away from you. One got away from me, but that's okay because it looks like they give you a couple extras, so that's great. All right, and that's the end of this step. Okay, for the next step, we're going to be adding the rocker arms to the tops of these cylinder heads. Now, one thing you'll want to notice on the rocker arms on this cylinder head is the rocker arms are wider at the top than they are at the bottom. So you want to set up your rocker arms so they snap in so the wider part is towards the top. So let me get these parts cut off the tree and we'll get right to it. Okay, so in the instructions, the steps are a little different than how I'm doing it. In the instructions, we wouldn't even have assembled the other head until after we put the rocker arms on this head, but it doesn't make any sense to me since you're already doing it. I did all of them, and then I'm going to do all of the rocker arms on both heads at the same time. You can do it how you want. If you want to follow exactly in the instructions, that's fine. I'm just doing mine a little different. Just for me, it makes more sense. All right, so we're going to take our rockers, and again, we have the wider portion that's going to go to the top. And right here you've got a little stand that these will snap in. There's a little ball right there. So we're just going to take these and snap them in. And there we go. And we'll do the next one. Same thing. Make sure our orientation's right. Snap it in. And there we go. All right, I'm going to do the rest of these. We'll be right back. Okay, so there are all of our rockers assembled on our first head. Now I'm going to do the other head. I'm not going to show you that because it's basically the same thing, so that'll be the end of this stage. All right, for step 28, we're going to bring our full engine block back and we're going to assemble our push rods. Now the push rods are all number 44. And they're all numbered the same, so you can cut them off your sprue. And on the push rods, I highly suggest after you get them off the sprue, take your sanding stick or sandpaper and clean these edges up and make sure they're nice and smooth, because these are going to be going up and down inside there, and if there's any burrs on them, they're going to cause a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these parts off the sprue and cleaned up, and we'll be right back. All right, I've got all my push rods separated from the sprue and cleaned up. I sanded down the parts where they were attached to the sprue to make sure they're nice and smooth, and now we're going to install them into the engine block. Now these install with the large side facing down, and you've got all these paths here, these gateways for the push rods, so we're just going to simply stick them in the holes just like this. And if you can see in here, the push rods are actually going in and sitting on the cam lobe. So you can see right, well, hopefully you can see right there. See the cam lobe right there, and the push rods on it. Here's the other cam lobe. So we'll put these in here. Alright, so all of our push rods are in place. Make sure they're standing up straight, like so. And that's the end of that stage. Okay, for steps 29 through 32, we are actually going to be installing our head gaskets, placing the heads on the engine itself, both the left and the right head, and then we'll be adding our valve covers to the top of that, and we'll be securing these with 6 screws in each valve cover. So let me get the parts ready and we'll get right to it. Okay, so here we have our engine block all ready to go with our push rods set in there, and we have our head gaskets. Now the head gaskets only go on one way and per side, and to make sure you've got the right one, these holes will be at the bottom, so down the bottom of the engine block here. There are 1, 2, 3 posts. You want to make sure those posts line up in these holes, so we're going to put that on there like that. And as you can see, they line up. You want them to line up for your cylinders. And then we will take on the other side and we will put this one on here as well. Okay. All right, so next we're going to install the left cylinder head. Okay, so now we have our engine block, our push rods are all ready to go, our head gasket is ready to go, and we've got our cylinder head. So I'm going to actually turn this around, because what you want to do is you've got these holes for your push rods. Those, make sure you can see that. Holes for the push rods are here. So we're going to put these push rods through those holes, and they move around a little bit, so you're just going to have to kind of help guide them in. Okay, and then once they're in, we've got our 3 holes to mount the head to the engine. We're going to make sure those are in there, and then we'll secure that with 3 screws. Now I'm going to start with my center one. Just get it in there enough to hold it in place so I can make sure everything lines up properly. And we'll do this one. And then finally this one in the back. All right, now that those are in place, we can tighten it up. I'm going to start with the middle one. And out here, and out here. All right, now you want to make sure that your rocker arms are setting. There's a little indentation right there. You want to make sure those are centered on your push rods. And that cylinder head is on. So now let's do the other side. Once again, I'm going to do this kind of backwards so you can see it. Get those started. Get them in the holes. There we go. Then we'll line this up here. Like so. And then we'll secure this head with 3 screws. Again, you don't want to over tighten these, you're going into plastic. But you want to make sure this is on there, nice and secure. Like so. And then let's make sure our rocker arms are setting on the push rods like they should. And that looks good, our heads are installed. Next, we're going to put our valve covers on. So for that, part number 42, and it goes on so that the breather cap faces this way. So we'll get that on there like so. And then we'll secure this with 6 screws. Once again, I'm going to start in the middle. This thing's getting pretty big. I have to keep adjusting my camera height just to fit it under the camera. That's pretty cool. Okay. And again, I'm just getting these started in here. And I will tighten them all up in a crisscross pattern. Alright, and that is our valve cover installed on our head. Now, I'm going to do the other one. I'll be right back. Okay, our cylinder heads are on, our valve covers are on, and that's the end of that stage. Okay, for steps 33 through 36, we're going to be dealing with the intake manifold. We're going to be installing the drive gear, which will be for the distributor, into the underside of the intake manifold. Then we're going to flip it over and we're going to install another one of these special timing and alignment tools to make sure that things don't get out of whack. Then we'll be installing the intake manifold onto the engine block. And then we'll follow up by assembling our water pump. All right, let me get my parts and I'll be right back. Okay, for this stage we have our intake manifold, part number 45. We have our drive gear, number 46. And we have our special timing alignment tool, part number 47. We're going to take our intake manifold, turn it upside down, and we're going to place this right in there like that. Then we're going to turn it over by keeping our finger on it so it doesn't fall out. And right here inside this gear, it's keyed. So we're going to take this end of the special alignment tool and we are going to fit it in there like so. And then this round piece here just fits right over this lug here. And it stays in there like that. Now, let's move on to the next stage. We're going to set that aside and we're going to bring our engine over. There we go. Now, with our engine facing forward this way, we're going to take our intake manifold. We're going to place it on top of the engine with our gear that we just installed facing the front of the engine. Now, this gear is going to mesh with this gear in here. So we're going to put it on here like that. Make sure the gear meshes. There we go. Like that. And it sits down on top of the engine like so. Now we're going to secure this with 4 screws. All right, and now with this one in place, we can tighten the rest of them up. And there we go, our intake manifold is installed, and that's the end of these steps. Okay, now we're going to assemble our water pump. This is part number 48. The water pump pulley, which is part 49, goes in this way from the front. And then our water pump impeller, part number 50, goes on like this. And then we'll secure that with 1 screw. And that is our water pump. Okay, for steps 37 through 40, we're going to be attaching the water pump assembly to the front of the engine. Then we'll be attaching the upper alternator bracket. And then we'll be attaching the lower alternator bracket. And then finally, we'll be installing the crankshaft pulley on the front of the engine. So let me get my parts, I'll be right back. Okay, we've got our engine back on the bench again, and now we're going to install the water pump. So the water pump basically fits on right in the front. And then we're going to be securing it with 3 screws. 1 screw here, 1 screw over here, and 1 screw down here on the bottom. Okay, we'll tighten those up. And then we have our water pump. Next, we're going to be installing the upper alternator bracket, and that's part 51. And this fits on and connects the alternator, or the electric motor, to the rest of the engine. So we've got 2 holes here and a hole here. So we're going to put this on and secure it with 3 screws. Okay, we'll put our screw through the bracket here and then get this one started. Then we'll get our lower one started. And then finally the third one that connects to the alternator. Get that one in there, and then we can tighten them all up. And that part's done. Now we're going to install our lower alternator bracket, and this one will connect right here, right under around the pulley, and the other end's going to go right here on the bottom of the alternator bracket, and it's going to go this way. We're going to attach these with 2 screws, so I'm going to get a screw started here and get this one attached in here just to get it started. And then we'll take our other screw and we'll attach it to the alternator like so. And now we can tighten these up. And there we have our upper and lower alternator brackets. And then lastly for this stage, we're going to install our lower crank pulley right here on the pulley, and we're going to secure it with 1 screw. Now this is also keyed, so we'll just put this on the shaft like so. Then we'll get our screw and we'll secure that. Again, we don't want to spin the engine, so you want to grab hold of that pulley so you don't accidentally turn the engine and get it nice and snug. Alright, so there's the front of our engine all assembled, and that's the end of these stages. Okay, for steps 41 through 44, we're going to do it a little bit different than it is in the instructions, and I'll explain why. First step we're going to do, that's just installing the alternator pulley. The next step says we're to install the fan on the front of the water pump pulley, and then the next step says we're to put the fan belt around the pulleys. Well, that's all nice, except I'm going to install the fan belt on the pulleys before I put on the fan, so I don't have to stretch the fan belt over the fan and mess with that. It's just going to be easier that way. And then finally, we actually get to install our distributor in the top of the engine. So let me get all the parts and we'll be right back. Okay, now we're going to install our alternator pulley along with this nut on the front of the alternator. So this just slips on here like that. We're going to attach this with 1 screw, and I'm going to get my screw started first through here, and then that just goes in here like this. And there we go. Our next step, if we follow the instructions, is to install the fan, but like I pointed out, we're going to install the fan belt next. So we'll just put the fan belt around here, stretch it just a little bit, and there we go. Our fan belt is installed. Next, we will install the fan blade. And again, this is held on with just 1 screw. So we'll get that started. We'll slip that over there. Whoa. And then we will hold it. We'll tighten it in. All right. And now our fan belt and our fan is installed. All right, next we're going to move on to the distributor. So we have our distributor here. Now, this line here is eventually going to plug into the base, so we want to keep that separate. Also, on the distributor, if you look here, each line is actually numbered on the distributor. So we're going to use that to point out which spark plug wires go into which cylinder. Okay, so to install the distributor, we first have to remove this alignment timing tool that we installed. So we'll pull that out. Now you can see here this shaft is keyed. Now if we look at our distributor, this shaft is also keyed, so we'll have to make sure we get that. Now this we can turn. This one up here we do not want to turn. This one here we can turn, so we'll turn that to where we need it. Now, the distributor only goes on one way. So looking at the bottom of the distributor, these offsets are a little different. So we have to make sure that it goes on properly. So what we'll do is we'll get our shaft turned where it will go on, and we'll install it in there like that. And then we're going to secure those with 2 screws. There's 1 screw and a 2nd screw. Make sure those are snug. All right. Our distributor is now installed, and that's the end of these steps. Okay, we're getting really close now. We're at step 45 through 48. So what we're going to do in these steps is we're going to attach these cable clips, which will help hold the spark plug wires in place. We are going to install our spark plug wires into each cylinder following this diagram that shows the firing order. We will then assemble the two halves of our left and right exhaust manifold, and then we'll install the exhaust manifolds onto the engine. So let me get all the parts and we'll be right back. Okay, I had to readjust my camera a bit so I can make sure I can get everything in the picture. So in this stage, the first thing we're going to install are these cable clips, and those just pop in right here on top of the valve covers, and they're just pressure fit in there. We'll do one on that side, one on that side. Okay, so now we're going to install our spark plug wires into the cylinders. So like I said before, these are all labeled 1 through 8, and we know our firing order is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to start off with number 1. Now these kind of go in at an angle, so we're just going to stick it in this hole and press it in there. And there's that one. And then we'll put this wire over here to kind of hold it in place. Then we're going to find number 2, which is right here. And that one is going to go over here, right into that port. Snap that into there. And then let's find number 3. Number 3 goes back here, into there. Snap that into there. Let's give that a little more, whoops, a little more slack there. And then we'll get number 4. That one goes back here. And then that goes there. All right, now let's do the other side. Now, our distributor is hooked up. Our spark plug wires are in, our spark plugs are in. Then we have this wire here, which will plug into the base later. So we're just going to leave that there. And next, we're going to assemble our exhaust manifolds. Okay, now we're going to assemble our exhaust manifolds, our headers. This is part number 61, and they're going to snap fit. So let's get this lined up here. Put that in the holes. Alright, press those together nice and secure like that, and then we're going to secure these with 2 screws. And then we'll do the same for this one. Alright, there's our exhaust manifolds, and that's the last of these steps. Okay, for steps 49 through 52, we're going to be putting together our air cleaner. We're going to be placing our air cleaner on the engine. We're going to be building our fuel filter and our fuel pump, and then we'll be attaching that to the engine. So let me get the parts and I'll be right back. Okay, to assemble our air cleaner, it's just a press fit. However, if you'll notice, this lug here is bigger than the rest of them. So that has to fit in the corresponding hole on the underside, which is this one. So we're going to take this, get it in there like that. Squeeze them together till you hear them click. And the air cleaner is assembled. Okay, for this stage, we are going to install our air cleaner on top of our intake manifold. Once again, this is keyed. One post is bigger than the others, so we just want to make sure we line those up with the corresponding holes. This is the larger one, so we'll just get that in there like that. Press it down, and there you have it. The air cleaner is installed. Okay, to assemble our fuel pump and fuel filter assembly, we just need these two parts, 64 and 65. Simply press together like so, and that is done. And then finally, the last step in this section is to install the fuel pump / fuel filter combination unit onto the engine, and it just fits right in here. It only goes one way, and it's a press fit. Just like that. And with that, this section is complete. Okay, for steps 53 through 56, we're going to install a dipstick, a sticker on the air cleaner, a sticker on the front of our display stand, and then finally plug our engine into the display stand. Okay, so to install our dipstick, there is a hole right here, so we simply just take our dipstick and insert it in there. And that's that. Next, we're going to take our 289 sticker and attach it to the front of the air cleaner. Now, these are just peel and stick stickers. They're not water slide. So I want to make sure we get that on the right way. That looks good. All right. Next, we're going to attach this sticker to the base. So we'll set the engine up like this. And we've got two options. We've got a German option, or we have the English option. I'm going to go with the English option since I do not speak German. Alright, this is kind of a metallic sticker. So we'll get that in lined up here like so. Hopefully. Alright, that looks nice. And then finally, we're going to install our plugs into the bottom of the base here. It comes along the top here, and I'm going to actually run this. Okay, so let's try if we can snake it through here maybe. Maybe, just maybe, go down here with this other wire. There we go. Just kind of tuck those wires together in there. Now, these plugs are two different sizes. They'll only fit one way. This is a larger one. This is a smaller one. So we'll put this one in the smaller one, this one in the larger one, and then you also have an audio output jack here. So I guess you could run this to an external speaker, which might sound pretty cool, you know, really shake the house up. You know, I don't like the way these wires are sitting here, so I think what I'm going to do is I am going to twist them together just to kind of keep them together. I think that'll look a little better, a little neater. I don't like sloppy wiring. There we go. That looks a lot better. I did realize just now that we did miss a step. We forgot to install the headers, or the exhaust manifolds. These simply snap in place. They've got clips here and square holes there. So we're just going to line them up, and they should just snap right in, like so. There we go, there's that side. All right, and now we have the completed kit. Awesome. And here we have it, friends, the completed Mustang V8 engine from Franzis and Makerhaus Limited. Once again, thanks to my friends over at Makerhaus Limited for sending this into the channel. I really appreciate it. So here we have the completed kit. Friends, it's a really nice kit. I mean, it went together easy. The parts fit like they should. And, you know, if I had to do this over several days for my own schedule, but if you wanted to sit down and do this in a day, no problem, even maybe an afternoon, it would be a great kit to do with your children. If you have kids interested in engineering or cars or engines or whatever, great kit to get them interested in things and see how things work. Just a really fabulous kit. I really like this kit and how it went together. And then, of course, the functionality. By hitting the button, we can hear it rev up again. Yeah, you can see the spark plugs firing, the rocker arms moving, everything's turning like it should. Yeah, just a really, really nice kit. It's got that great V8 sound. And then on top of that, this magazine that comes with it is really nice. It's just chock full of Mustang history. The cars, the engines, everything, racing. Awesome book to go along with it. So what would I change about this kit? Well, not really a whole lot. I mean, it is just a really nice kit. However, a few little things, like they went to the trouble of putting a dipstick, but I think it wouldn't have been too difficult to just add an oil filter. Also, for these cables up here, I think they could have somehow put in like an ignition coil, which would kind of eliminate some of these wires maybe, or hide them a little better. The distributor looks good. It could look a little more realistic, but really, I'm just picking at things here. Overall, a great kit, a really fun build, and I'm really enjoyed this. So once again, if you guys would like to pick up one of these for yourself, I'll leave a link down in the description. I'll also have a scannable QR code on the screen that you can scan with your phone or tablet and be taken right to their website where you can purchase one of these for yourself. So that's going to wrap up this episode, friends. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, please remember to give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate it, and it helps out the channel. So until next time, friends, be safe out there and go build something.